Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on The Father Show. And I'm your host, Mike Thompson. If you have not subscribed to this show, you need to hit that subscription button. And while you're there, hit that notification bell so that way every week when we have a show, you'll be notified and you won't miss an episode. Now, if you're a man and you're looking for resources, go to The Father Show with MikeThompson.com. Click on resources, and there you will find a list of national and state resources that can assist you in whatever that you may need. And if you ever want to get a hold of me or the staff, just write us an email at thefathershow@gmail.com, and we'll get back with you as soon as we can, and we'll help you as much as we possibly can. So today on our show, we have a fantastic young man that's going to come on, and we're going to be talking about human trafficking and how us as men and the women out there, how we can protect our boys and girls from being human trafficked. And we really want to squash this as much as we possibly can. It is really sad to see a kid be trafficked and, set up in a sex trafficking or whatever. And I've read a lot of stuff about the sex trafficking. I've read stuff about even parents that take their kids and go off with them, run off with them. And that's still called trafficking because they're taking over state lines and different issues. So, and legal matters at that point. So today, I really want to thank you for joining us, and I really want to welcome our guest today. And without further ado, because we have a lot to talk about, I'd like to introduce you to Ross Nancarrow. Ross, how you doing?
Hi, Mike. Great to be with you today. Great to be able to share with your audience. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you being with us. Now, Ross, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Because I read your bio, and I know you're a father and you're a grandfather, and you have a lot of great work that you're doing. But I bet you can tell it better than I can.
Well, I'm based in Australia, and you guys can probably pick up something there by my accent. But I live in Australia, and a father of 4 children, 3 boys and 1 daughter, all married now. I have 8 grandchildren. And I've been in different ministries for the last 27, 28 years, working in community development, in church development. And then more recently, we've been working in Nepal, and particularly in areas of anti-trafficking. We've been working in community and church development there for about 10 years, and over the last couple of years, particularly focusing on anti-trafficking. There's currently about 20,000 Nepali women and girls that are trafficked across the border every year from Nepal. Mm-hmm. This is a country of 29 million people, so that's a huge number to see trafficked. That's what I'm basically involved in these days, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, do you see or find people from other countries that have been brought into Nepal that are being humanly trafficked?
Yeah, there's certainly people from India that have been trafficked into there. There's possibly people from Bangladesh or some of the surrounding areas. Mm-hmm. But predominantly, it's the Nepali girls that are very attractive to the traffickers. And, I was talking to somebody the other day. They said there's a Nepali girl working in a nursing home here, elderly home. And they said just a beautiful girl, just a beautiful disposition, beautiful personality, and quiet and quite a pretty girl. And I said, that's just the thing that traffickers are looking for. Girls who are submissive, girls who are pretty, but also in Nepal, the girls who are naive and not aware of what is happening in the world of human trafficking, and not aware that they could be used as a commodity and sold as if they're a commodity. So that's the challenge in Nepal. It really is the Nepalis being trafficked to other countries.
And that's really the same problem that, we have here in the States and in other countries,
Yeah.
would you say?
Yeah, I think so. We see it in Australia even, where girls from different parts of Asia are trafficked here. They're coerced or intimidated, their families threatened at home, their passports, etc., taken off them, and then they're forced into really a prostitution or forced marriage, which is almost a slavery situation. Yeah.
That's terrible. Now, is there certain, and you kind of mentioned it a second ago, certain type of victims that they look for?
Definitely. And the unique situation of Nepal has created the challenges there. Nepal's a country that has just really come into the 21st century, not so long ago. As you drive through Nepal, you could be thinking we're still back, many hundreds of years in many parts of it. So the isolation there and the lack of education, I think for girls, it's 60 to 70%. For women who are illiterate. And so education towards anti-trafficking is a large problem there. So they're the girls that are targeted in remote communities, in communities where they are unaware of what's happening in the greater world. And they're simply tricked, largely. They're coerced or tricked to come across the border. Promise of a good job. And if you talk of families where they really don't have a lot to eat. We had a story recently, 3 girls, 12, 14 and 15-year-old, all friends together in a small village. Their parents had stopped sending them to school. They couldn't afford to send them to school. Of course, there were, food issues. There wasn't much to eat at home. Well, a guy came to the 3 of them and promised, "Do you want to get a job, in India? We can get you a job. You can stay together and still be friends. You can continue your education and send money home to your poor families." And they looked around at their situation and took about 30 seconds to say, "Hell yeah, get me out of here."
Yeah.
And they had no idea they were being trafficked. And we, of course, were able to intercept those girls at the border. And thankfully, they weren't trafficked.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Now, how do you intercept them? Do you have a stopping point that you search and you have the police work with you?
Sure. Mike, we'll go to that PowerPoint and put up the first slide there.
Okay.
And I'll start to move that through and just explain a little bit of what we do there.
Okay.
So you can see in the bottom right corner there's a gentleman in front of a booth. And we'll move straight to the next slide, I think, because it's better illustrated there.
Yeah.
There we go. And this is Pastor Yubaraj, and he has an organization called Asish Social Service Nepal, ASSN. You can see it on the booth there. And the girl in the booth is one of our counselors. And we have these booths set up at different points along the border between Nepal and India. That border is about a 1,700 kilometer open border. And there's many crossing points, but it's open. There's no checks really for Nepalis, for Indians. So people can come and go as they want. So we put our counselors in different places along the border like this. And they sometimes in bus parks or at the crossing. And they'll simply talk to people that are there. They've got connections with local business, local police, local politicians, and community leaders to have permission to be there and actually have permission from the police to question anybody or hold anybody up to really get in their face if needed, and question them like that. So the girls would get on the bus and they'd simply ask the girls that they see where they're going, who they're traveling with. If they see a red flag or hear something that doesn't ring true for them, they know that they're speaking to a potential victim of trafficking. Mm-hmm. They have the police on speed dial, and of course they're able to bring those girls off the bus and start counselling them straight away. And that's generally how it goes. Yeah. If you move to the next slide, it really starts to open that up a little bit. What we do is set up border surveillance with different booths like this at various points. We've got 4 booths at the moment, and we'd like to put a whole bunch of booths along that border, and there's so many places we can be doing that. We intercept the girls at the last moment, and really it is that last moment. They are 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away of being lost into being trafficked. And if they're trafficked into, say, prostitution in Nepal, they're taken straight to Delhi, they're drugged, they're tortured unless they meet their quota every day. And quite literally, they're raped 20, 30 times a day. And there's no days off, every day. And that's their life from then on. So it's a horrible situation in that part of the world. And what the girls face is, it's hard to imagine. Of course, they try to numb the pain rather by drugs or alcohol and things like that. The next,
let me ask you something though, Ross.
Sure.
Once they get into the prostitution, is it hard for them to get out?
Yes, it is, Mike. So a story of one of the girls that we know of, this girl at 15-year-old was selling fruit and vegetables for her parents in the markets. And she was taken to India at 15, 16 years old. And next thing she knew, she was promised a job and things like that. And next thing she knew, she woke up and she was in hospital and they'd taken a kidney. And that was the beginning. Yeah, organ trafficking is a big part of this as well. And so kidney's gone. She's then kept by the people who'd trafficked her. It was a family, actually. They'd raped her, forced her to marry one of the men that were there, and she had a child. Next thing she knew, she was trafficked again. She was sold into a brothel in Delhi. And there she was she was raped every day, 30 times a day. And unless she complied, they took her child away or tortured her to ensure that she would comply and be in that. She was not able to get out of that. They literally put her in, locked her down, things like that. So the statistics are that 1 to 2% escape that once they're in it, in that part of the world.
Wow.
And that's a shocking statistic if you think of the life they're sold into.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we've got, on the next slide we have there is a video of a girl named Yamuna. Yamuna was she was intercepted by our girls, and in this clip, Yamuna tells a story. Let's go to it.
Okay.
त्यहाँनिर आएर झरे अनि त्यहाँनिर सोधपुछ हुँदै थियो अनि पास्टर युवराज अङ्कलको वहाँनिर काम गर्ने मान्छेहरू थिए अनि उनीहरूले सोधपुछ गर्दाखेरि अनि म उता इन्डिया बाहिर जान लागेको कुरा थाहा पाएर मलाई उहाँहरूले राख्नु भएको मलाई त्यो कुरा थाहा थिएन अनि थाहा भएपछि मलाई चाहिँ यति नराम्रो लाग्यो अनि मलाई चाहिँ झुक्याउन खोजेको रहेछ त्यो दिदीले भन्ने कुरा मैले थाहा पाएँ अनि त्यतिखेर मैले केही गर्न सकिनँ। यहाँ आएपछि मैले यो सामाजिक जुन आशिष सामाजिक सेवामूलक तालिम थियो त्यो काममा मैले अनि यो सिक्न पाएँ अनि सिकेर अनि म सिक्दै क्रममा पनि म येशूलाई परमेश्वरलाई पाउन सकेँ अनि म चर्च पनि जान्छु अनि पाएर मैले अहिले सानो व्यवसाय सुरु गर्न लागेको छु। के भन्न चाहन्छु भने कि बाहिरको मान्छेहरूको कुरा नसुन्नुहोस् अनि पहिला म येशूलाई नपाउँदाखेरि पहिला म धेरै दुखी अनि मेरो मनमा अशान्ति थियो र अहिले म धेरै ह्याप्पी पनि खुसी पनि छु अनि मैले केही अनि धेरै यो उसले आशिष सामाजिक सेवा मुलुकले मलाई धेरै उत्साह दियो अनि मैले केही कुरा
Just a short clip there, but a great story to see a girl like Yumina intercepted again at that last moment, and then she went through into our safe home and was able to receive skill training, and we ultimately then set her up in her own little business with a micro enterprise project and a little sewing business. So a great story to see her released from that. Yeah. There's another clip that I've got there, Mike, and you've probably got it teed there. This is the Saralai border. I was in Nepal 4 weeks ago, and I took the footage that you're about to see here. Now, unless your listeners are thinking this is only happening to girls, let me tell you that the men and boys are involved as well. Let's go to that clip, and then I'll speak into it.
Okay.
We're at another border location where we've got one of our border surveillance booths. It's right on the border with India. We've just arrived and 12 children are being trafficked from Nepal into India across the border.
The police are being called and they're on their way. And as the police come, they'll try and identify where the children come from, who their guardians are. And I can see the police are there now. And we'll assess whether their children are actually being trafficked, or whether the guardians of these children know that the children are on their way to India. As we get closer to it, you can pick up a number of the children there. You can see the police just in the background on the right-hand side speaking to some of their counsellors. So these are the children. These are the people who are trafficking these children. This is happening as we arrived here today. We don't know what to think of it. It's horrendous. The whole concept of this is horrendous. So now we hand these children over to the police and see what happens.
We don't know the full details yet, but as a mother, my heart aches for these kids. I just can't imagine what is going on here. It is one of the most confronting things I've ever seen, and just reaffirms in me the work that we're doing.
Wow.
Quite shocking. We were blown away by that. It was confirmed that each of those children were being trafficked, and no question about it. And the vast majority were able to be reconciled back to their families who really didn't know what they were being trafficked into. And then, things like that. But the thing is, in Nepal, 90% are women and 10% are boys. We don't hear many of the stories of boys or young men who've been trafficked like that. It's more common in Nepal that the young men are trafficked into a slavery or forced labor situation there.
Okay.
But those who are trafficked from an early age into the sex industry, we don't hear the stories, as you know, and your listeners will know. The men kind of a bit more stoic. They're ashamed of that. They'll keep it to themselves. They don't want to talk about that stuff. And we hear the stories of the women, but there you are. There was 12 boys all being trafficked just 4 weeks ago, and we were able to intercept them.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really seem to be any different whether they're what part of the country they're for, because the boys are not going to normally say much.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. You know, and I think it's many women, of course, are involved in standing against anti-trafficking, and we appreciate that. But my message is to the men. It's to you fathers out there. It's to you men who are prepared to make a stand in this world and say enough's enough. We have to fight for our women. We have to fight for the liberties that we enjoy in the countries that we come from, and recognize that sometimes in our own countries, but definitely in other parts of the world, people's human rights are being trodden on and destroyed through this horrible situation.
Yeah. Because I mean, really, Ross, listening to you now, when we've done we've done a show before about human trafficking, and it really breaks my heart. You know, I'm a father of 4 boys and 2 girls, and then I have 3 grandsons, and the idea that one of them could be put into
Yeah.
sexual trafficking or slavery,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
and it really, to hear that these women are not just taken away, but they are forced to marry somebody, and the men that they marry, I'm sure, can do whatever they want to them. They have no power or any voice, from what I'm hearing from you.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And it is a situation in our world it's hard to comprehend. I speak to people every day, and they said, I can't believe that trafficking is happening in our day and age. And it's a different form of trafficking. Many people can't comprehend the kind of trafficking that is actually happening today, or the extent of it. And my encouragement is for people to be aware of what is happening in our world in human trafficking, be aware of what we can do to do something about it. I don't think that many people realize we can all do something about human trafficking. And it means just using our voice. It means just being prepared to say, no, I will put my voice against that in the least. And that's the least we could do. Of course, getting behind organizations like Every Daughter Matters to stop this, and other great organizations that are out there is another way. Or just in our own communities, being aware of what it means for the rights of women, allowing them to have their voice and an equal voice, and equal opportunities with us as men.
And I think we should, as fathers, really listen to our child when they come to us and say, hey, somebody touched me the wrong way, or somebody approached me, or somebody, said something, or, in a way that made them uncomfortable. And we, as parents, we need to teach our kids what they need to be looking out for, and what should make them uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I have one daughter, and I look out for that girl. And I have, thankfully, she's found a wonderful partner in life, and a man who loves her and respects her. I've got another friend who spoke to me just a day or two ago, and he said his daughter took up with a guy, and he was a bit secretive in some of the things that he was doing, and he'd kind of pull her away from the family a little bit. Well, once they got married, he's not able to see his daughter anymore. And now her voice, even in that situation, back to her own family, has been squashed. And that's another form of violation of the rights of somebody. When we have that flag, when that red flag goes up of somebody who's messing the wrong way with our own daughters, then we need to be doing something about it.
Now,
and
what
I guess
can a father do?
Yeah.
What can he do?
Well, I think it starts with education, being aware himself of the things that are being perpetrated against the women and the girls in our life, our daughters. And being aware of that is the beginning, but making a stand against it, speaking, having an open conversation with family members about human trafficking or about the abuses that can be perpetrated. Sadly, Mike, it's not a great dinner conversation around the family meal table. But it's a needed conversation.
Yeah.
It's a needed one. And needed not just for our daughters and our wives, but our sons. I have 3 sons, and they're great young men. And I speak to each of them about human trafficking. We speak to them about the rights of people and how we can maintain that, how we within our sphere of influence can speak up and speak positively and show by our own example where we give opportunities for our wives and our daughters and the little ones to put their voice forward, things like that. Yeah.
Now, Ross, tell me, what is the youngest age you have seen somebody recover from sexual trafficking or for trafficking, period?
Yeah. 5 years old would be amongst the youngest.
Wow.
Some of the boys, 1 or 2 of the boys in that video you saw were 5 years old. We've seen girls that young as well. In fact, we've recently took in a girl. She was in a very vulnerable situation in one of the communities in Nepal. Her mother had died when she was very young. Her father was an alcoholic. He really didn't want to be caring for her, looking for her. She was going house to house, and really this is a jungle area that I'm describing. And it was just a village, so just begging for food, and she'd get food this place each night and that place. And she was almost like a wild animal, because she had no social interaction skills whatsoever, and just surviving. Where can I get food today? Well, we came across this girl, and we were made aware of her, and some of our counsellors went to that area and spoke to the father. He couldn't care less. He
Really?
wasn't interested at all. And so we were able to bring that girl into a safe house, and then a community home, shelter, and she'll grow up there and get a good education. She was 5 years old. She was more a potential victim of trafficking, but it just, you can't comprehend it, Mike.
No.
If you look at some of these children and you think of what evil people are desiring to perpetrate against them, I'll be honest, it's beyond my comprehension that the depravity of what men can do.
Now, do you find it, Ross, that when men are involved in trafficking, and women too, because I know there's women that actually snatch up other kids as well.
Yeah.
Do you find that they have a tight niche community, so it's hard to infiltrate them, know who they are?
Yeah. I'm sure in different parts of the world that's precisely right, and I think certainly that would be correct in Nepal. Generally speaking, in Nepal, it's opportunistic. So people will realize, hey, I can befriend this girl or trick this girl, and all I've got to do is get her across the border. We've got contacts. They can be sold on from there, and it goes from there. So often it's very opportunistic. A couple of years ago, I was in one of the jails in Nepal, in Chitwan area, and as we were visiting in this section, there were, I think, 70 or 80 women in this section, and we were there speaking about different things from our organization. I asked the warden there what the majority were in for, and he said, well, the majority are in for trafficking. And in fact, in Nepal at the moment, it's more women who are trafficking the girls across the border than it is men. Tragic situation. It's money. It's just about the money, where people become a commodity, and that commodity can be sold not once, not twice, but a dozen times, 24 times, every single day. And so it's a sad world that we live in.
Yeah, and you think about it, a woman could probably approach a child and they will be more open to talk with her. Yeah.
That's right. And they're seen as trustworthy. It's another woman.
Yeah.
They can speak out of their own experience. Oh, I got a great job in India. And another part of the trafficking situation in Nepal is the arranged marriages within the culture of the country. So if a 15, 16-year-old girl is about to be married off to a 40, 45-year-old guy who lives down the road, that's not a very attractive proposition for her. So some scumbag comes along, and on the phone, he goes on Facebook and he finds this girl and starts to, sweet talk her. I like you, I love you, let's elope to India. And she thinks, man, the possibility of a love marriage, compared to an arranged marriage with someone I don't know and don't like, man, let's do it. And that's another form, a very, very popular form in Nepal of how the girls are trafficked across the border like that.
Wow. I mean, this is just really, every time I want to do a show about human trafficking, it just bothers me. And at one of the places that I'm at on a regular basis, I see a poster all the time of kids that are missing, and and most of them are teenage girls, but there are also some guys, some boys in there that have been snatched up, and And
Yeah.
I find it hard to understand for me, and I guess maybe because it's just who I am, but for a grown man to want to have sex with a child, it doesn't make sense.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's against everything that we would, I think normal people would be thinking about. You know, a pastor in my church recently made a comment and it kind of shocked me. And we were talking about, the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And he made this comment and he said, little girls are not raped in heaven every day.
Right?
And I thought, wow, that's true. And he said, and they shouldn't be raped on earth either.
Yeah.
And it kind of, the stark reality of that statement struck me. How could that possibly be that little girls are raped in our world today?
Yeah.
And
little
sold
girls, little
as
boys.
a commodity. That's absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I read a story recently about a woman that raped a little boy, and I'm like, all right, how did you do that? I can't even fathom in my mind how that action was done.
Yeah. I can't either, Mike. I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
It's some the better way of putting some sick people out here. And that's why I wanted to do this show about human trafficking, because I really want fathers all over the world to understand how important. And when I saw your banner that every daughter matters, it really hit me, because we, as fathers, we always talk about our son, and we always put emphasis on our son, but our daughters matter as well, and we have to protect them, even just as much as we do our son. We have to protect them, and that's one reason I really want to do this show, and I really thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Now, is there anything that you could, in addition to what you've already said, anything else that you could tell fathers that they need to do to protect their children?
I think, men, the best thing you can do is to learn, if you don't already have, good communication skills, so that you can truly understand your children and can be able to speak your heart as a father. As we get older, we realize that our part is a mentor to our children. But we have to earn the right to be a mentor. That comes only with respect. And you've got to be really the kind of person that emulates that with the kind of life that you live and seek to live. But then communicate accurately, honestly, into the lives of your children what you hope for, the good things, the right things that we know are there, the things which only come from God himself. And so, communication skills, I think, is a big area. It's a simple thing, may sound a simple thing, but it becomes a complex thing, and we need to take it on. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ross, let me ask you a personal question. Did you grow up with your father?
Yes, I did. However, my father was a bit of an absent father.
Okay.
My home life growing up was not a great home life. My dad was a coal miner. He worked shift work, and most of the time he wasn't there. My mum was an alcoholic. And so that created quite an interesting growing up family.
Yeah.
That's probably a whole nother story, Mike, but I was able to come through that and find faith when I was 25 years old. Actually found faith in the remand center. I'd been busted with a whole bunch of marijuana, and that's where I came to faith, and that changed my life completely.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And I know that wasn't on the agenda, but I always like to try to find out a little bit more about why a person does what he does and what has made him develop into the man that he is.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I would, unfortunately, that's going to be our time. But before we go, I really want you to tell the audience, how they can get a hold of you, what they
Sure.
can, learn from Every Daughter
Yeah.
Matters organization,
Yeah.
and whatever else you
Sure.
care to share as well.
So this the last slide you've got it there, Mike. It's got
Yeah.
our details on there.
Okay.
How you
Yeah,
can contact us there.
I can bring that
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was that March report.
Yeah, next one, I think, or two on from that, one more. We didn't get to talk about some of those. There we go. But this is our website, www.everydaughtermatters.org.au. It's an Australian-based organisation. And we've, of course, got our socials there on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's tagged as Rescuing Nepal's Daughters. And there's a lot of resource that we've got on the website in terms of some of the magazines. You can sign up for that or get their newsletter. And certainly financial support is the thing that keeps us going and able to do what we do. So that's just a couple of things there. Through the website, anybody can contact me, and I'm more than happy to communicate with anybody who wants to stand against human trafficking and be a part of a community that's raising a voice against human trafficking, not just in Nepal, but worldwide. Our desire is to interrupt it and eradicate it, and we hope to do that soon.
Well, I really do, and I'm pulling for you, and I really hope you do, because we really need to do something more to protect our kids. And this human trafficking is really, I'd like for it to stop, but I know we've been trying to stop so many different things, and it keeps going on and on and on. But if, one person told me a long time ago, you can't save everybody, but if you save one, that's good.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I know that's
Yeah.
hard to do.
Yeah,
You want to save them all, but
yeah, yeah.
I know we can't.
Yeah,
Well-
an analogy just on that, Mike, to finish. And I heard the other day, our job is not to feed the 5,000, but our job might be to bring the bread and the fish.
Yeah.
And every single day, God puts into our hands something in terms of capacity to do good in this world.
Yeah.
He only asks us to do it today. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. And that's one thing that I talk about here is us being, as men and women that are listening, to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be.
Yeah.
And every day
Amen.
we should be
Yeah.
striving to be better than we were
Amen.
yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, Ross, I
Amen.
really, really thank you for coming on the show today and bringing those powerful presentations and letting us know
Yeah.
what is going over there. And also
Yeah.
the same thing that's happening here. You're just in your country. We're here in the United States, but it's happening all over the world, and we got to stop it. So please keep up the great work that you're doing. And,
Okay.
anytime I can help you support it, please let me know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, Ross.
Thank you.
Don't hang up, though.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today, and I really want to thank Ross Nancarrow for coming on the show and talking about human trafficking. I don't. If it didn't touch your heart, something's wrong, or you might be the problem. But this is something that really touched my heart, and it really bothers me to hear that these little kids and boys and girls that are getting trafficked all over the world, and it happens right in your backyard. So please, fathers, pay attention to your kids. Please get in touch with them. And like Ross said, you got to build that communication so that they can come to you and know that their daddy is going to protect them. And even if you're not a dad, even you're a stepdad or just a man and you have a niece or a nephew, they need to be able to come to you as well. So open up all avenues where they can come and get the help and support that they need so they don't get stuck in human trafficking. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be our show for today. I want to thank Ross Nancarrow for coming on the show and talking about his organization, Every Daughter Matters. And really, you need to check him out. And let's see what we can do as men, wherever you are, to help end human trafficking. But before we go, if you have not subscribed to the show, please subscribe to the show and hit that notification bell while you're there. So every week when we have a new episode, you'll be notified. And tell somebody else, let somebody else know that the Father Show with Mike Thompson is here. We're here for the men, and we want to make sure that we are being the best versions of ourselves as we can possibly be. So until I see you next week, God bless you all. I thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next week.